sweet faces.
Yeah, we're getting old enough that we might not be
Yeah,
able
we
to see
need
them clearly.
we need to see your faces. Right. Okay, that's better.
Did you miss us last week?
They're like, were you gone? Were you even gone?
Well,
Yes, we
to be
heard.
honest, we didn't miss you, but
We
that's okay.
we yeah.
Did they?
We heard they
Good.
did. Yeah.
Good.
See, Al and I are going to retire soon. Let these younger kids take over. They're good at it. I heard they were very creative in the way they presented the emotional cup, so that's
Good.
good. All right, quiz time. We've met for 4 weeks now. Tonight's the 5th week. You've learned 7 tools. What are they?
Notes are allowed.
What? 1 to 10 scale.
Okay. That's one. Do we have to start all over? All
Yep.
right.
Babbling Brook, Dead Seas. Caves. Files.
Ooh.
What'd you learn last week? So
There
the
you go.
emotional cup. That's
Okay.
5. Got 2 more. The one we taught about rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. What was that called? You're all shaking your head. Yeah? Yeah.
I remember that.
Help me out, buddy. He goes, oh no. Emotional responding. Okay. And then the very first week, the 3 circles. We do have to
Body,
review.
soul. I tell you, repeat and repeat.
Mm-mm.
That's how I learned too.
Yep. Okay.
That's why I keep teaching.
So I'm afraid to ask the next couple of questions, but that's you, so go ahead.
Do they hit Babbling Brook? Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. All right. So, what did you learn about the emotional cup last week? She did a very good job, Evan. With regards to the emotional cup, what did you learn about yourself with regards to what's in your cup? Ooh, okay. Did you convey that to your parents?
Did they already know it?
Okay.
That makes sense to you? It made sense. Okay. Here's what I'm doing, what I'm doing.
Yeah. And nobody likes to be stupid or act stupid, but sometimes we are. And it's only because we lack experience. And sometimes we need people to come alongside and teach, which helps. That's good. Um, are some of you learning that there are certain things you're holding on to?
They're afraid to nod their heads.
I
and go,
noticed it.
"Oh."
Yeah, well,
From, yeah. Do you want it now? Okay. All right. I've got them.
you missed it, so you're free. You're exempt from answering questions. Okay, okay. Uh, do you realize that some people find it easier to let go of things than other people? I was talking, or Charlotte was talking to one person. She said, it doesn't stick around, which is great. But for those of us that it hangs in there, it does create problems. Um, and some people have had things smoldering in their cup for years. Um, I remember one of the people that we were counseling. I think Charlotte asked, "How long have you been married?" 21 years. How long has it been bad? 20. So 20 years of married life with bad things stuck in that cup. Not much room for good things. But we're going to work on that. Going to the cup and the things that come out of the top of the cup. Did you see some of that in your life? Were any of those things coming out of the top of the cup things that you did, do, don't want to answer?
They don't.
Okay, okay. So why are some of those things still in your cup? Yes, sir. Okay, okay. And think about, memorize and repeat. Yeah. Uh, but sometimes it takes a little bit help from another person to help you heal from that. And we're going to be talking about that today. Uh, all those things, the hurts in the bottom of the cup, just like a sliver, you got to dig a sliver out. Nobody likes to dig a sliver out because it's going to hurt. It's the same with the hurts in the bottom of that cup. To address it, it brings up the memory, which hurts all over again. But the thing that you need to deal with it is having somebody alongside that is willing to be comforting and compassionate about what you're going through. And understand, most of us, when we got hurt, were alone and we didn't tell anybody because we don't like to show our weakness, but it still hurts. And we need to be able to do that with somebody else. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the person that hurt you. We have some examples of that.
So when I have hurts in my cup, depending on what age I am, and I'm hurt and I don't tell anybody, then what do I do with it? I stuff it, right? I just stuff it. And I don't bring it up again because when I got hurt the first time, there was truly nobody there who cared, especially if I didn't tell anybody. The person who hurt me may or may not have cared, but they may or may not have known they really hurt me, right? And if I don't voice it, then all I can do is stuff it. And then years later, I don't want to talk about it again because first time it was pretty ugly and I didn't feel too good, so why keep bringing it up, right? So I just continue to stuff it down in that cup with anger and resentment and bitterness and shame and whatever else comes with all of that. But the tool you learned 2 weeks ago, emotional responding, is so important if I want to empty my cup because it kind of looks like this. When Al and I were in training to lead these courses, we went down to Austin, Texas for I think it was a 4 or 5 day weekend, and we were in a 4-bedroom condo with 3 other couples, and we called it the compound because we couldn't leave. We had to stay there, and one of the things they wanted to train us in was this emotional cup, and so we had to deal with what was in our cup. That was a lot of fun, and we had a half a day to do it, so we really had a lot of time. And I remember the night before thinking, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I got up, I went down to the living room with my Bible, and I sat there and I said to myself, it's not going to get any safer than with these people who know what they're doing. So I decided I was going to empty my cup as best I could. And so I told one story. I told lots of stories, but I told one story about my dad, and I'll preface it with I grew up in a really good home. But my dad just was not intuitive to girls. He just wasn't. And so I was never daddy's little princess. I wasn't spoiled by my dad, noticed a whole lot by my dad. And one day we were out. My dad had a 59 Ford Fairlane. If some of you know what that looks like, big old bench seat in the front. And back in those days, kids could sit anywhere in the car, even on that part up in the back in the window. We'd lay up in there. Oh my gosh, we go to prison now. But anyway, I was in the front seat with my mom and dad. We were running errands, I think, and we pulled into a little strip mall there, and Mom went in, and Dad and I stayed in the car. And I remember sitting in that front seat, and Dad had his arm up like this over the back of the seat, and I scooched up real close to him and put my arm around him. And he took both hands and pushed me to the door. And he said, "Don't do that. It isn't nice." And I was probably about 7, 8 years old, and I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I do know from that weekend with those people and looking back that it was the last time I initiated any physical contact with my dad because I was afraid to. I was afraid of the rejection. All right, so I'm telling the story with tears. I used to not be able to tell this story without crying because it was so hurtful. Because I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I was never explained what I'd done wrong. And this man, one of the other 3 couples, he was a worship leader in Jacksonville, Florida. His name was Bill. I'll never forget him. He jumped up out of his seat. He came over and he stood in front of me. And with arms outstretched to me, he said, "Come here, darling. We're going for a car ride." Whoosh! I was a mess. And I hardly knew this man. And I flew into his arms. And he just talked to me and said almost everything I'd ever wished I'd heard my dad say to me. I was a mess. I mean, I was a mess. And I cannot tell you how healing that was. And I would have never believed before experiencing that another man stepping into my dad's shoes, saying what I'd always longed to hear from my dad, would have been helpful. I just didn't. On the way back to Cleveland, I cried on the plane all the way. I cried all the way. What is that, a 3-hour maybe ride? I'm sure the stewardesses thought we were fighting because every time they looked at me, I was a mess. And here was interesting about that. I think the first half of the trip, I was crying for me. I was crying for 7, 8-year-old me because this man made me feel worthy to be a daughter, and to be loved. And I think the second half of the trip, I was crying for my dad because he missed out on me. I was a good kid. Dad, you missed out on me. And I was sad for him. And then it just occurred to me, I'm healing from this, or I wouldn't be able to feel for Dad what I'm feeling for him, right? And so that was impactful. Well, that wasn't all that happened that day because I talked a little bit about my brother. My brother was 17 months older than me, and I just really always wanted a big brother who was protective and took care of me, and I didn't get that. I had a brother who bullied me quite a bit, and I talked about that a little bit. And another worship leader from Texas jumped up and came in front of me, and he apologized to me. He asked me to forgive him. He was talking as if he were my brother. And he said, "Could you ever forgive me?" And yeah, I could. I had a tender heart. I wanted to forgive my brother. He just never asked me to, kind of thing. It was a huge deal that weekend when I learned all this. And I said, other people can help me empty my cup. They can. I never confronted my dad. I never confronted my brother. And I didn't have to. And so when we taught you the tool of emotional responding, please go back and go over those notes. Please memorize those 2 questions. Please remember the 4 wrong answers because it is a powerful, powerful tool. It truly is. If anybody needs a little coaching or reminders, I'll be glad to help you. I was so glad this week our small group had Phil and Jan are in it, and their son had surgery today, I think. Is that the wrong? It may be the wrong email. It might have been somebody else. Nevertheless, David DeFelice, who is usually here, responded with some of the best emotional responding I'd ever seen in our text in our community group. So I texted him privately then and said, "Way to go. I see you're getting it." And he said, "I'm trying really hard." So I hope that's true of you, that you are trying really hard to learn these tools and to implement them. So you need to be teaching emotional responding to other people. You need to have 2 or 3 really good friends who know emotional responding, and that's who you go to when you're hurting. That's who you go to, or that's who you go to when you're rejoicing, because they know how to weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. Does that all make sense? Okay. So we're going to move into our tool for tonight. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, if you just, I've been told, because I don't like to watch myself, I've been told that if you just go on Hope's website, no, go to YouTube and type in Hope Church, they'll pop up the recordings. Yeah, and so they should all be there. I don't see anybody up in sound to ask, but I do know the first two sessions definitely are there. I do. I have the handouts if you need them. The only one I don't have is last week's because I don't know where Nick and Liz are, but they have the extras. But I will get them. I will get them for next week, I promise. Okay? Have you ever heard a pastor preach? I don't have my phone. Matthew 5:22 and 23. I don't have to look it up. I can paraphrase it a little bit, but it's the one that says, if you go to present your gift at the altar and you remember that you or your brother have something against each other, put your gift down, go fix it, and then come back, right? I've heard preachers preach on that all my life. Preachers are really good at telling us what to do. Go fix it. I have yet to hear, nothing against you, Sean, I've had yet to hear a pastor say, and here's what it looks like. Here's how you do it. Here's how you go restore a relationship. Here's what you say. I was never taught that until I came across these materials. So I don't think that we don't want to go make things right. We're just not sure how to do it. All right? And so tonight, we're going to learn that tool. There's another verse in Romans 12. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. So God's really serious when he says, I don't want you mad at each other. I don't want you holding grudges. I don't want bitterness. I want you to fix it. So how do I fix it? And tonight, that's what we're going to learn about. Could I ask a couple of you to pass out these handouts? I'm really sorry I forgot to do it. Elijah, will you help me, please? Okay. Thank you. Okay. um, so did I get out of whack here? No, I did fine. Okay. So in order to move toward reconciliation, I obviously have to resolve differences. For example, maybe I badmouthed my pastor because I didn't like a change he made at the church. And I gossiped about him, and now I'm feeling very ashamed and convicted about that. But how do I go make that right? Maybe I resented my roommate who broke our lease and left me stuck with not getting my deposit back, and they didn't offer to give me half of that money, and I'm resentful. Or maybe my sister never reaches out to me. I'm the one that pours into the relationship all the time. These are things that cause resentment and bitterness. And do I just let them float? Thank you. Or do I do something about it?
There are two types of hurt: intentional, maybe even malicious, where somebody actually thinks about things to say that will hurt you. The old adage, sticks and stones will break my bones and words will never hurt me. That's from the pit of hell and it smells like smoke, right? Because they do hurt. You know what? Oh, but it goes. Those are intentional and they do hurt. There are also those unintentional hurts. And usually that's either an error in somebody's method or somebody doesn't know you well enough to know what are the things that will hurt you. Many cases, just being friends, you aren't real close to a person, you don't know their background, you don't know where they've come from, you don't know their history. And sometimes those things that you can say to a person like that, just they go from being the nicest person in the world to being a rocket taken off and ready to blow up. And you sit there and you wonder, what did I say? I had a guy I worked with. We were driving down the road, talking shop and all this, and I said 3 words. I don't remember what the 3 words were, but he went from being the nicest guy in the world to being a hothead mad. And he wasn't mad at me, but he was mad at the last guy that had said those same 3 words. And I'm sitting there thinking, what in the world did I say? Because it just simple words. But that is one of those things in the bottom of the cup. It hurt him. And I don't know how long ago it was, but it was still there, and it still hurt. And anytime he heard those words in that same phrase, he didn't like it. Now, people will hurt you. Hopefully, unintentionally, but it still hurts. How do you deal with it? What do you do about it? Well, we're going to be talking about that. And thinking about what hurts you, what's in the bottom of that cup, and what drives the things that come out of the top of that cup. Can you be calm, cool, and collected 1 minute and be a raging maniac seconds later because somebody said something that somebody else had done to you years before and it hurts and it's still there? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to take those bad things in the bottom of that cup, just dump them out? And it can be done. And you don't necessarily have to go back to the person that did it because emotional responding will help. But if you want to reconcile with somebody that's hurt you, you're going to have to go back to them. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. Sometimes it feels easier to retaliate or end the relationship. But what does God say? He says it is to the best of your ability, live in peace with everyone. So he wants us to go out there. Tell somebody that whatever they said or did hurt yourself, or think about things that you've done to hurt other people, and make reconciliation.
So last week, Jess and Nick were supposed to ask you to think of a time when you know you've hurt someone else. Did they do that? Okay, so we hope you brought it back with you tonight. If you weren't here last week and you didn't hear that, it'll just take you a nanosecond to think of something you've done. I mean, we've all done, right? We've said the wrong thing, done the wrong thing, made a promise, didn't keep it. We've done something to hurt people. So we want you to get one in your mind that you want to work with tonight. You're not going to say it out loud. You're not going to have to confess to anybody, but we want you to have something to work through this worksheet with.
So, think about one of those ways you've hurt somebody. And in number 1, select it and write down, one of the ways I have hurt, name the person, is fill in the blank. What did you do? What did you say? What didn't you do that caused somebody else pain? Especially whoever that person is that you put in the blank.
Spouse, kid, coworker, family member, church member, it can be anybody.
Yes,
Be unintentional.
those are sometimes the hardest ones to figure out.
Most of us aren't malicious.
Yeah.
Right. Now you're like in grade school, I want to hide my paper. I don't want anybody to see it. Everybody got one? Anybody need more time? I don't want to rush you.
Why do you think we want you to write it down? What does writing it down really do for you? Exactly. You're taking ownership of what you've done.
I'm admitting that I did it, that it was wrong, whether I meant for it to be wrong or not. I did it. And so I'm taking ownership. Step number 1. Now remember, this is a biblical, we're going to lead you through 7 steps, and these are biblical, all right? The next thing we want you to do, and we're not too good at this, is I want to think about the person I hurt and ask myself, I wonder how they're feeling because of what I did. See, I want to defend myself. I want to say, but I didn't mean to, and you shouldn't be so sensitive, and blah, blah. No. How do you think they're feeling because of your words, your actions, your lack of action? How do they feel? We're not too good at this because remember I told you you don't have a good feeling vocabulary. So we gave you some words down there under number 2. Sad, upset, discouraged, on down the line. If you need to borrow one of those, borrow it. But in number 2, with regard to this hurt, so-and-so probably feels what? Fill it number 2. Jesus is always our example. So how hard do you think number 2 was for Jesus to answer when Peter betrayed him? Do you think Jesus was thinking about Peter? You idiot. I don't think that's what he was saying. I can't believe you did that. You always mess up. That's not what he was saying. What was he saying to Peter? You must be so discouraged, upset with yourself, lonely, any of those words. He was caring about Peter. So how hard is it for us to turn around and feel something for the person we've wronged? We're not used to doing that. We're used to defending ourselves, right? So that's number 2.
Number 3, the other person is in pain. Do you care? And part of that is to think, okay, what if that had happened to me? Well, how would I feel? But being able to transfer that information to the other person because they're in pain and you caused that pain. Do you care about how they're feeling? So the key issue is feeling something for somebody else. Yes, it's somebody that you hurt. Unintentionally, maybe intentionally, but you still hurt them. And how does it make, as it says, as I consider the other person's feeling, I feel. Now, you're not here to defend yourself. You're not here to say reasons why, but you are here to say, I hurt for them. It pains me to think that I have caused them this kind of injury. So fill in that blank. As I consider the other person's feeling, I feel for him or her. I care how I have contributed to this hurt.
This is a little tougher one. This is not about how you feel. What do you feel for them? Yes. Jesus doesn't say if you're the one hurt or if you're the one doing the hurting, go. He says, go make things right. So if I've been hurt and I just, since you don't know you've hurt me, it is my responsibility to tell you. We're going to give an example on a couple. We're going to get you in one of our really good fights and show you how we did that. But yes, it is their responsibility. Otherwise, they're the one holding the grudge and the bitterness, right? Not doing them, and it's not doing you any good. It's like them holding on to that and hoping that they're drinking the poison because they're having all the negative symptoms and hoping it's going to hurt you, and you're clueless. Yeah, right. Okay, here's what I want you to notice. We're preparing you to go make things right with a person, right? In 3 steps, how much have you talked to them? It's a simple question. In 3 steps, how much have you talked to them? Not at all. Oh, so there might be some preparation we need to do before we approach them to make things right? Yes. And these 3, and the next one too, these 3 steps are designed to help you experience godly sorrow. God needs to break your heart over what you've done. And you're thinking, not such a big deal. Yeah, it was. You hurt another person. It is a huge deal when you hurt someone. And so, can I experience godly sorrow? Because the normal thing to do is to go on the defense, defend myself, give reasons, tell them they're being silly, blah, 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 blah. Where God is saying, no, consider their emotions, consider their hurt, consider what you've put in their cup, and it's wrong, and I want you to fix it. Make sense? All right, number 4, we're going to bring God into this little argument we're having. Oh, another foreign thought. How many of you, in the middle of a good fight with somebody, stop and say, oh, let me talk to God for a minute? We don't do that. We don't do that. We just shoot from the hip, don't we? And we say hurtful things, or we do hurtful things, or we think ugly thoughts, or whatever. But God has something to say about it when we hurt each other. He has a 3-letter word for it, and it's called, I was going to say, if you don't know that, we're going to start preaching here. Sin. It's sin when we hurt each other. It's just, even when I didn't mean to, if I don't make things right with the person, it's sin. It's just as easy as that. And we don't call it that when we hurt each other. We don't call it sin. I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. In fact, I want to eliminate 2 words from your vocabulary tonight. And those 2 words are, does anybody know? I'm sorry. You ever make 2 kids say they're sorry to each other? What does it sound like? Come on, you know. Sorry. Sorry means, sorry I got caught. Sorry you're so sensitive. Sorry you're making such a, they're not really sorry. Kids aren't, when you make them say they're sorry, they're not sorry, all right? And so many times as adults, when we just say sorry, we don't mean it. In fact, Al, what did I used to say to you when you would tell me you were sorry?
The question always was, what are you sorry about?
Al would know something was wrong.
I would.
And back in those days, I wasn't mature enough as a Christian to know that I needed to tell him what was wrong. I expected him to know because he did it. You did it. You should know what you did. I shouldn't have to tell you. That's a game. That's a game we play. Don't do that. If there's something wrong, open your mouth and tell them. So he didn't know he did it. He didn't mean to do it. But we've got a thing going on here. So if I'm not willing to tell him, that's my sin, right? I'm not going to tell him. I'm going to make him suffer. I used to be really good at the no talking game. I could not talk for a long time. And once I realized how destructive that was to our relationship, I just stopped it. He wants to know what's wrong. I'm going to tell him. Yeah. Okay, you ready? Because I'm going to give it to you double barrel, buddy. All right?
And she did.
Mm-hmm. And so, I'm sorry. You use that when you trip over somebody's feet or whatever, but not when you're trying to restore a relationship. All right, so I need to consider God. What does he say or feel about what I did? It was just wrong, no justification. It was wrong. And not only does it hurt the other person, it hurts God. Those of you who are parents, what's it like to see your kids be ugly to each other? It's hurtful, right? You don't like to watch it. Well, God doesn't like to watch us do that either. And so it's hurtful to him. In fact, that's why Jesus had to die on the cross. Let's just get serious about this. What you thought was a minor thing that hurts somebody, God kind of thinks it's a big deal. His son had to go to the cross for it. And so I hurt this person, and now I need to be forgiven by whom? Who needs to forgive me? can't hear you. God and the person I hurt. So another question you need to ask yourself is when I'm having a tiff with somebody, when there's something between us, how often do I say, wait a minute, I need to go talk to God before I talk to you? We don't do that. We just start talking. Like I said, we shoot from the hip. And God says, come to me. You hurt my child. You need to apologize to me first and ask my forgiveness. Then you're free to go talk to the other person. You're more ready. We've conjured up some godly sorrow in these first three. And now we need to make things right with God. Isn't that weird? Is that how you fight? Don't shake your head. Is that how you fight? Because for most of us, it isn't. We fight the way it was modeled for us, whatever home we grew up in. And some of you had great models, and some of you had rotten models. So it just depends on who you are. But God says, you've hurt my child, and therefore there needs to be forgiveness. I mean, just think about it. Over 2,000 years ago, Jesus was hanging on the cross, and when he hung there, he looked down through the ages to 1952, Knoxville, Tennessee, St. Mary's Hospital, where a little baby girl named Charlotte Chaplin was being born. And he said that day, I know how many times she's going to mess up. I know how many times she's going to stamp her little foot in defiance to her parents. I know how many times she's going to be ugly to the other girls at school. I know how many times she's going to disobey. I know how many times she's going to speak disrespectfully to her husband. And because of that, I'm going to stay on this cross. So every time she messes up, I can forgive her. These spats and hurtful things we do to each other, it's serious business. When I put it in that context, right? I've hurt the Father. I need to make things right with him. All right? So I want you to look at the middle of the next page, and it says, as I consider how I've hurt this person, what God says and feels about it is, just write a couple of lines there. What does he say and feel about what you wrote in number 1? Go back to number 1.
Now that you've gotten what you think God feels about it written down, you're going to take a little bit of time now and confess it to him directly. 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sin, God is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins. So I want you to take the moment, close your eyes, and pray and ask Him to forgive you for what you've already written in number 4.
The last one at the bottom of the page is kind of twofold. It's very possible that there's someone in this room who has never accepted God's forgiveness for their sins. This is kind of what it looks like here. Understanding He died on the cross for the wrongs that I do, that He's so willing to forgive me. So it can be part of that. It can also be being so glad that He will forgive me for this particular sin that I'm talking about that I wrote number 1. So in number 6, we just want you to as you reflect upon what God has done in forgiving you, you feel what? How does it make you feel to know that God will always forgive you? There's some words there if you need them. Okay, again, I want to draw your attention. You have gone through 6 steps. You have not talked to the person yet. Preparation. The first 3 questions were to prepare your heart for godly sorrow, to make you feel for the other person. These last 3 have been confessing to God and being grateful that He's willing to forgive you. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say that you and this person are actually kind of having a fight over this issue that you're talking about. Do you want to go and put your dukes up and battle it out with them now? Or do you want to run to them and make things right after these 6 steps? Do you want to battle out the fight? Mm-mm. You want to make it right? Sure. And I tell people this all the time. So you go fight. So your voice is the loudest. Your words are the ugliest. You are the strongest. And you come away from this fight and you won. My question is, what did you win? You didn't. You lost. Big time. You lost the heart of the person because you didn't try to reconcile. You tried to win. There's no winning in God's word. There, when you're dealing with hurts and with fights. And so there's nothing wrong when I've hurt somebody, and maybe it's somebody I hurt 20 years ago, maybe it's somebody I hurt yesterday, but there's nothing wrong with saying, I need a little bit of time to go prepare for this talk. And these 6 steps are what you're going to do to prepare for this talk. And finally, when we get to 7, you get to open your mouth, which I know just blesses you because it's so much fun to apologize. I just love it every time I have to do it. So I'm going to give, this is where I'm going to tell you about mine and Al's fight and how we resolve this before we take you through step number 7. So one of our best fights happened at church. We're so spiritual, the two of us.
Imagine that.
So we were in Sunday school one Sunday morning, and our teacher wasn't there, and Al was substituting. And at the beginning of the class, this was back in the dark ages, we had a chalkboard at the front of the room, and he was writing down prayer requests, and he was kind of grouping them. These people were sick, these people were traveling, these people were whatever. And I thought that he put a name in the wrong column. And being the wonderful, helpful wife I am, I told him in front of there was about 30 people in the room, and I told him, you put that in the wrong column. And those of you who know Al know he's one of the kindest men in the world, and he whipped around and let me have it in front of everybody. That is so out of his character. I was just taken back. But I tell you, I went from hurt to mad in a nanosecond. How dare him talk to me in front of everybody when they know we teach marriage classes, right? I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. And as far as I was concerned, he was in the wrong. He had no business talking to me like that, okay? I didn't even consider what I had done because I had disrespected him by correcting him. He didn't ask for my help, but I volunteered it. Okay, so I sat through the rest of the class like this. These people were our peers. They thought it was hysterical. They were laughing. I didn't see one bit of humor in it. I was so embarrassed. I just wanted the floor to open up and swallow me so I didn't have to face everybody. And so I was pretty mad. And so had we been mature, done it right, we should have just stayed in that classroom when everybody left and fixed it. But we didn't. We went upstairs to worship. Well, Charlotte did not worship that day. Charlotte was too busy being mad. Okay. See, you guys thought I was so nice, right? I was so mad at him. So then somewhere along the way, I thought, we got to fix this because we teach this stuff, so I can't let this go on because how long does God give us to fix it? Before the sun goes down. It's about 12 o'clock now, so I got about 10 more hours maybe if I'm lucky. So we get home. This will answer your question, Dana. I turned to Al when we got home, and I said, we need to talk. All right? So I don't know at that point if Al knew how embarrassed and upset I was or not. He probably did from my body language, but Al, we need to talk. Now, this is a super duper fight because there's so many things on the table at this point. Because guess what? He was hurting too because I really had disrespected him. All right, so who do we deal with first? Me, because I opened my mouth first. We need to talk, Al. So I have the floor. Please hear this. I have the floor. We don't talk about Al's hurt at all at this point. Because if you do, you're just going to go in a circle. Well, I wouldn't have if you hadn't, and you shouldn't, and I did, and we get nowhere. All right? So we went up to our bedroom. Our kids were home. Went up to our bedroom, and I turned around and I said to him, you embarrassed me so badly in front of all. They laughed at me, Al. They were laughing at us, and I was so embarrassed. Now, men, at this point, it would have been really easy for Al to said, well, I didn't ask for your help, right? Defend yourself, right? I wouldn't have if you hadn't. Kindergarten talk. But Al didn't do that because he knows this material. So he said to me, yes, honey, you're right. I was wrong to make the class laugh at you and embarrass you that way. Will you forgive me? Ladies, this is the real me. There was not one bone in my body that wanted to say yes. You know why? He hadn't suffered long enough. I mean, this is just our flesh, right? He hadn't suffered long enough. But God doesn't really give me a choice, does he? He says, forgive. And if I wait until I feel like it, hell will freeze over. Because it just doesn't come naturally to us to want to forgive so quickly. But out of obedience, not because I felt like it, I said to Al, yes, I will forgive you. Now, I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but the minute you say those words, the feelings follow. And so once I said, I forgive you, I felt close to him again. all right? And now I really did want to make things right. And Al said to me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did that hurt you? I said 15, because it was a big deal to me. He was thinking 2 or 3, and here's why. Al's married to a very confident woman. You know, I don't get my feelings hurt easily. I handle things well. He probably thought the class laughing at me was no big deal. It was a huge deal to me that day. And so when I said 15, he didn't quite know what to make of it. But here's what he said to himself: I better get to the bottom of this, because I don't understand. We don't always understand why the other person gets hurt, right? He said, can you help me understand? I don't think I could have done that 5 minutes earlier, but this is when God gives you grace. And I said to him, I just went back to 5th grade. And I remember sitting in a 5th grade class. My teacher was Mr. Scherer. I really, really liked him a lot. But we were sitting in class, and he asked a question about the Norsemen. Do you know how many years ago that was? And I still remember the question, because those nerve endings fused this hurt in my heart. And I said, he asked a question about the Norsemen, and I wanted to answer. And I can see myself as a little girl waving, you know, how you do that to try and get the teacher to call on you. And he did. And I answered, and my question must have been wrong, because he laughed at me. And when he laughed at me, what do you think the other 30 kids did? They laughed at me. When Al caused the class in Sunday school to laugh at me, I wasn't dealing with an adult Sunday school class. I was still dealing with 5th grade. I had never told anybody that happened to me. Back in those days, you went home, teachers were gods. They didn't do anything wrong, and so it must have been your fault. It wouldn't have done me any good to go home and tell my parents that my teacher laughed at me. It just wouldn't back in the 50s, you know, it just wouldn't have. So I had carried that, and Al and I, we talked about it quite a bit, and then I said to him, do you realize that since 5th grade all the way through college, I never answered a question again out loud in class unless I was 150% sure I was right? I hadn't realized how that impacted me. Now, Al's hearing me say all this. How do you think he's feeling right now? He's feeling sad for me, but he's feeling doubly sad because he did the same thing to me that teacher did. Didn't mean to, didn't realize it, had never heard that story before, but nevertheless, it hurt me, all right? So he asked my forgiveness. We talked about it. Everything's wonderful, right? No, we're not done. Myrna's shaking her head. No, he didn't get his turn. All right, do you see how we successfully worked through that and didn't bring up what I had done? One hurt at a time, that's all you can deal with. So then he said to me, well, I wasn't feeling so good either when you were bossing me around in class. I didn't boss you around, I was helping you. I didn't say that. That's what I was thinking. I wasn't bossing you around, I was helping you. I was being a helpmate. He said, I didn't ask for your help. Oh, crud in a bucket. So we didn't have to talk as much about Al's because I understood that Al was raised by a father who made it very clear to Al that he didn't do anything right. Al didn't do anything right. He never heard, good job, son. He never heard, I love you. He never heard, you know, tell me about what you're doing. It was always, why did you do it that way? It was always wrong. And so what was Al dealing with in Sunday school class that day? His dad, not me. He was hearing his dad again, that this is you messed up again, you didn't do it right again. And so we were able to work through that one pretty quickly, and we walked out of that bedroom. It was maybe a 20, 25-minute discussion. All was well. We loved each other again. We were nice, and there were no grudges being held. Do you see that? So many times when we react in hurt, we really are reacting from unhealed hurts from another marriage, a childhood, a coworker, sometimes it really has not much to do with the person standing in front of you. All right? So that was a big one for us that day that we worked through that. And I remember Al saying to me, as far as I am able, I will never cause a group of people to laugh at you again. Do you think I can handle being laughed at? I can. I laugh at myself. It's just that day, it was too close to that memory. It was just a hard one. All right? Now, with all that being said, that's our example. Let's turn to number 7. It's on the last page of your handout. And this is what you're going to do if you're trying to reconcile with somebody. You know you've hurt them. You're going to them to try and make things right. And what's the 2 words I told you can't use? I'm sorry. You'll call each other out on that so much. You'll start to say it because it's so automatically, and the other person will say, "You're not allowed to say that. Charlie said so." Okay. Instead, look at the wording in A. It was wrong of me when I, and then you list what you did. It's actually the same thing you wrote in number 1. So write it down there. It was wrong of me when I, whatever example you're going to use. So for me, it would have been, Al, it was wrong of me when I bossed you around in front of everybody. That was so disrespectful. That's what I would write. And then what are the next words under that in capital letters? Will you forgive me? It was wrong. I cannot tell you how much I hate saying that sentence. It was wrong of me. I don't like to be wrong. I don't like to say it. It was wrong of me when I disrespected you. Will you forgive me? All right? I, at this point, have done all I can do at this point. It is now in the other person's court. And either that person is going to forgive me or not forgive me. Now, let me help you with something. Have you ever apologized to somebody and they say, "Oh, don't worry about it. No big deal. Just forget about it." And I say to them, "No, I ask you to forgive me, and I need to know whether you're going to or not. I need to hear the words that I'm forgiven. I don't want them to just slough it off and push it under the carpet." So if somebody's asking you to forgive them, you need to say the words, either I do or I don't. I was told one time I was not forgiven. It about crushed me. I thought, that's not in the script. What do you mean? That was a tough one. It was my father-in-law, actually. So that was a hard one. We made up later, but he decided to forgive me. All right, so hopefully, especially if this person is a Christian or even if they're not, hopefully they're going to say, "Yes, I choose to forgive you." And then the next thing you say to them is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did that actually hurt you? Because it could have been like, "Yeah, he thought 2 or 3, and I'm saying 15. And if I'm that far off in the scale, I need to understand what I've done. I may not really understand what I've done here, all right? One time when Courtney was little, she asked me how to spell a word. She was probably in 6th grade. She asked me how to spell a word. I think I was getting dinner, not an excuse, but I was busy. And I guess I looked at her with a look and said, "Really, Courtney?" Because I thought she should know how to spell the word. It was a wrong answer. And she said to me later, "Mom, you just think I'm stupid." Broke my heart, that she had received that way, because I would never think she's stupid. So on a scale of 1 to 10, Courtney, how much did that hurt you? I think she was about a 25. All right. And then on D, ask them to help you understand why it hurt. They may or may not know the answer to that at that point. And if they can't give you answers, say, "Would you at least please think about that? And we can talk about this later. I really want to understand what I've done." All right? And then is it a need that's not being met? Is it connection to another hurt? What is it? And then E is on here. E is really meant for more family relationships. So if this is something you do to me on a semi-regular basis, then we need to have a little signal of some kind so I can communicate with you when you're about to do this to me. All right? I think I shared with you one night that Al accused me of having a tone. Did I share that with you? Yeah. Okay. So we do have a little signal that When he thinks I'm having this tone, he's allowed to give me the signal so that I realize it and can stop. And so, can we have something like that so that we're respectful of each other, that we can do that? All right? You ever heard anything like this before? To work through something like this before? 6 steps with God first. So many times people say to us, I never stop to consider how God felt about it. I'm just in a fight, and I shoot from the hip, and I don't slow down to consider. So when I read Matthew 5 now, I need to say, lay my gift at the altar and go make things right. If you have to use this, use it. And some people say, well, it sounds very canned. And I say, so what? It works. Who cares if it's canned? It works because we're doing it God's way. All right? Questions? Concerns?
Doesn't it sound exciting?
Yeah, it's a fun project. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could put it in there if you wanted to, but you got to put the wrong and the asking forgiveness. You got to make sure that's in there, okay? But we're just so used to a cursory sorry, that so many times it doesn't have real meaning behind it. Okay, that was a good question. Anything else? Are you just dying to go try this? Doesn't it just bless your soul? But it does work. Now, here's the caution. You sat in this class and you heard all this. You go try to apologize to somebody who's never heard this. They're probably not going to respond the way you might want them to. All right? They may not know how to say, yes, I forgive you. They may not know how to put it on a scale. I don't know, but you're going to have to give grace when you try to use this with somebody who doesn't know it. But I would be teaching it to everybody I know so that when I do come to apologize, you know what I'm doing. Those of you who have families, teach it to your family. We took our kids away for a weekend when they were in probably 3rd and 5th grade. We went to a holodrome just so they could have a fun weekend. And every meal, we sat down and taught them one of these tools we're teaching you, so they grew up on it. And I have to tell you how much it blesses me when one of my 5 grandchildren come to me and they say, Mimi, it was wrong of me when we just had a session with our granddaughter not long ago when we were on vacation in Tennessee, and she was disrespectful to her dad in front of us, and Dad jerked her up, took her out of the room, came back. She came into our bedroom just bawling, and Mimi, it was wrong of me to talk to my dad like that in front of you. Will you forgive me? And I wrapped my arms around her and I said, honey, I will always forgive you, but thank you for apologizing. And then she had to go do it to him. She had to do it twice. But to see that being passed on in our family is so meaningful to me. And so I encourage you to do the same thing. Teach it to your families, to your friends, to whomever. So we have 9 minutes left. Do you have any questions? Okay, here's what I want to encourage you to do. We were going to have you practice this. Aren't you glad there's not time? But I'm telling you, if you don't practice it out loud, you won't do it. Practice it out loud to somebody, either somebody that was here tonight, or you might say, okay, while we're not mad at each other, let's try this, and let's do it. Or maybe if you're a husband and wife, a parent, a child that's here, maybe you could do number 1 and say, let's just go through this and see what this looks like and how does it work. And yes, it might feel canned at first, but the more you use it, yeah. Question? The person now answers yes or no. Oh, yeah, you're the first person that's ever caught that. It looks like a misprint.
But it's not.
Oh, there is no yes, but.
I forgive
I
you.
will forgive
yes,
you, but.
Right. It's
Yeah.
it's unconditional. Yes, I forgive you.
Yeah.
That's why we continue on with the scale, 1 to 10. So I have an understanding as to how much it hurt.
Yeah.
And also to say, I don't want to do it I don't want to hurt you like that again. So I will, because too often people will say, yeah, I forgive you this time, but you do it again and we're done. Well,
Yeah.
there is no but. Either
No
you're going to forgive
forgiveness.
me or you're not.
Right. Good question. Anything else? Yeah. There we do. It's hard. So instead of ignoring it, an hour later, you go to mom and say, Mom, I need to ask your forgiveness for being impatient with you. What I said or what I did was kind of ugly, and I need your forgiveness. That will clear the air because she'll forgive you. She will. But if you get it out in the open, because what you're doing right now is you're just putting it under the rug and hoping it'll go away. You're not confronting it, right? So just immediately apologize the minute you know you've been impatient. It's hard. It's really hard, but it will clear the air. It'll make God happy. Right.
And asking for patience. How do you get patience? But having trials to gain patience.
It's easier to apologize.
It's easier to apologize, definitely.
Right. Good questions. Yeah. So I'm sorry. So take this tool. Don't file it in your file cabinet at home. Keep it out. When you see tensions around you, shove this in their face and say, "Let's try this. Let's do this." And the more people you can teach it to, the better. So, each one of you now, I have the freedom to come to you and ask you forgiveness, and you know what to expect. Um, wouldn't it be great if everybody in our church could learn this? How quickly we could resolve things, if we did that. So,
And probably the hardest part is for the person who gets upset or who is upset with you to understand why what you did hurt them. Because, like in Charlotte's case, going back to fifth grade, that was 19 years before we were talking about this. Do people carry grudges that long? Are they affected by the words and actions of other people? You bet they are. And all it takes is a little bit to remember that. And those memories held together, they're there forever. They never go away. And they hurt just as much today as they did 20 years ago. But they can be healed. But it takes somebody willing to say, yeah, this hurts. And this is why it hurts. And for the other people to say, I can understand that. And if you're not the person who did the hurting, but you're the person that's sitting there talking to this person, using emotional responding will be the thing that helps them to heal. Because there are some people you can't go back to. I can't go back to my dad. He's been gone since 1988. That's a long time. But I can go to my wife and we can talk about it. She can respond to my hurt, and that will take the hurt out of the cup.
and it sounds like this. Al will share something that happened in his childhood, and I will say to him, I am so sad for that little boy whose dad didn't appreciate him. I am so sad that he didn't see all the good things you did. I'm so sad he doesn't realize what a great kid he had. And in fact, I told Al's dad that one time. You don't realize what a wonderful son you have. And he started bad-mouthing Al again. This is back when we had phones, regular phones. And I hung up on him. And he called me right back. And he said, "Are you mad at me?" I said, "No, but I'm not going to listen to you talk about such a wonderful man the way you're talking about him." And he never did it again in my presence, you know. So emotionally responding to Al really helps a lot for him to reset and say, yeah, I do a lot of good things. If you're around us very much, you'll hear me compliment Al over and over and over again because I want to make up for what he didn't have in childhood. I do. I want to be that person that appreciates him for who he is, kind of thing. So that leads me to one more thing. I got 2 minutes. And that is the more vulnerable you are with the people in your life, whether they're family, whether they're friends, whether they're church members, co-workers, the more vulnerable you're willing to be, the more they know you, and the less likely they will hurt you. Does that make sense? If you know that pushing me away will hurt me, and you know why, you'll probably. I have a daughter who doesn't like to hug, and I make her hug anyway, and she never pushes me away, although she'd like to, because she's just not a touchy-feely person, but she understands. And so the more I'm willing to share my hurts from the past and how they affected me, the more likely you will have compassion for me and not want to do those things. Have I told you about what Al does when he buys me a car? He drives me nuts. So we get a new car. We don't buy new cars, we buy used cars. But anyway, we got a car new to us. And he will ask me, I am not exaggerating, hundreds of times. Do you like the new car? Are you happy with the color? Do you like the accessories it has on it? Are you still happy with the car? Blah, blah, blah. Do you like the seat warmers? Blah, 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 blah. And I feel like saying, how many times do I have to tell you? As many as it takes, because he never heard it from his dad. And so now I got even smarter. I don't wait for him to ask me. I'll say things like, have I told you lately how much I like my car? Have I told you? And he needs things he's done around the house. Have I told you lately? And so I'm meeting a major need. So do you see how needs and emotional responding and it's all linked. It's all linked. And so these tools all work together. All right. On that, any last words? Yes. Mm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. If they're there, yeah. Yeah. If they're there, sure. Absolutely. Prayer never hurts. Right. Okay. Anything else? All right. Right.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we do thank you for loving us as bad as we can be at times. You still love us. And you love us so much that you died to pay for our sins. And for that, we are grateful. Father, I pray that as we have spoken, the words are not ours but yours, and they have touched the hearts of the people that are here listening. May they take what they've heard, put it to practice. May they think about the people that they've hurt. May they think about how they feel and how it might be affecting their lives. Allow them opportunities to go to those people and to ask for forgiveness. And just to express, what I did was wrong. And I'm sure it hurt you. May the other person say, well, yeah, it did hurt. But since you're asking, I do forgive you. And allow them now to have the opportunity to question how much it hurt and why. Because that opens up so many areas of understanding. And the thing that we don't understand each other. We don't know each other well enough to know what hurts each of us. Help us to explore that. Help us to understand ourselves and those around us. Lord, I pray that you would bless each person here, allow them opportunities to take care of hurts that they've caused, as well as help other people to heal them. And we ask that all in Christ's name. Amen.